A machine exists that can give you anything you've ever wanted to feel. Success, love, peace, every sensation indistinguishable from the real thing. You plug in once, and for the rest of your life, you forget it was ever a machine at all. Would you do it? Take a second. Actually answer. Most people say no almost instantly. The interesting part isn't the no, it's that you can't immediately explain why. In 1974, a young philosopher at Harvard named Robert Nozick was arguing against one of the most dominant ideas in ethics, the idea that pleasure is what makes a life good, that if you could maximize good feelings, you would have maximized a good life. Nearly every utilitarian framework of the time rested on this single assumption. Nozick wanted to break it, not with an argument, with a machine. He described it carefully. Superintendent neuropsychologists could stimulate your brain so that you'd think and feel you were writing a great novel, or falling in love, or becoming the person you always wanted to be. The whole time you'd be floating in a tank, electrodes attached to your skull, but you wouldn't know that. You'd experience it as completely real. He asked one question: would you plug in for life? If pleasure is genuinely all that matters, the answer should be obvious. Yes, plug in immediately. You will feel better, forever, guaranteed, with no risk of disappointment, betrayal, or failure ever touching you again. But almost nobody says yes. So you start looking for reasons. Maybe you're worried it's a trick. Maybe you're afraid of what happens to your body while you're floating there. Maybe you don't trust the machine. Nozick removes every one of those objections in advance. The machine is real. It works exactly as described. Your body will be cared for. There is no trick. You're still gonna say no. So look closer at what's actually happening in your chest right now. Refusing something that mathematically guarantees more pleasure than your current life will likely produce. You're not being irrational. You're revealing something. There is a thing you want that has nothing to do with how good an experience feels. You want the experience to be true. You want to have actually written the novel, not merely felt as though you had. You want to be loved by someone real, not float through the sensation of being loved by no one. Pleasure was never the whole transaction. Contact with something actually outside your own head was always part of the deal, even though nobody ever asked you to agree to those terms. You just always already wanted them. In 2020, researcher Florian Kova and colleagues tested this directly, running the experience machine scenario across multiple countries and cultures, controlling for the objections people commonly raise: distrust of machines, fear of bodily risk, concern for the family left behind. The refusal held steady across nearly every population tested, even once those objections were explicitly removed from the scenario. People weren't refusing because they doubted the machine. They were refusing because something in them required the world on the other side of the experience to actually exist. Researchers started calling this a preference for authenticity, for contact with reality, not as a nice to have, as something close to a requirement, sitting underneath every other thing you think you want. Nozick built his machine to break utilitarianism, and it did exactly that. But it also did something he may not have fully anticipated. It built a door you've been standing in front of for your entire life without ever noticing the handle. Every time you choose the harder true thing over the easier pleasant simulation of it. Every time you'd rather hear an honest, difficult sentence than a comfortable, hollow one. Every time you turn down the version of a relationship, a job, a life that would feel better but isn't actually the thing it claims to be. You've been refusing to plug in the entire time. You just never had a machine in front of you to notice you were doing it. You don't actually want to feel good. You want it to be true. And you've never had to choose between those two things until right now. That's a question worth sitting with.